This is the Local Real Estate Developer Podcast, where we share the stories of locals across the country who took that empty lot or that old building and turned it into something awesome that their community needs. I'm Kristi Kandel, and I've been a real estate developer my entire career. My co-host Raphael is a commercial broker, and together we're sharing the stories of locals making a huge impact on their communities. And what we've learned is you don't need millions in the bank or decades of experience to get started. You just need the confidence, tools, and the right people around you. This podcast is your chance to gain the confidence to get in the game, because real estate development isn't just for the insiders anymore. It's for people like you too.
Welcome to the Local Real Estate Developer Podcast. I'm your co-host, Raphael. I am a commercial broker, investor, and aspiring developer located here in Louisville, Kentucky, and we're excited today to be here with Kristi Kandel, my co-host as well, and she's located in Florida today. Excited to see you as always.
Yeah, good to see you. I'm Kristi Kandel. I'm in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, developer, investor, and I teach locals how to become real estate developers in their community. And today's guests have a very special place in my heart because they are also here in Fort Myers Beach, and we were ground zero for Hurricane Ian in 2022. Mike and Don Miller have an incredible story of resilience, rebuilding, and providing hope to all of us here in our community. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hey, so maybe if you could start off and give us a little bit of background of who you are and where you started in the Midwest, and then what brought you to Florida in the first place.
Well, we started it many years ago back in Columbus, Ohio, in the real estate business. We started out actually in the copier business and selling and exporting used copiers to third world countries. Diversified into commercial real estate and bought our first building in 1996. We still have it, 54,000 square feet. Then we've grown to about 1.6 million square feet of bulk warehouse in Columbus, Ohio that we lease out now. And back in 2018, we moved down here to semi-retire and then got into the real estate restaurant business down here.
That's awesome. That's a big jump. You know, having my previous experience, I studied engineering in college, but then I had a catering company while I was in college. And then right after college, I decided I wanted to go jump into the restaurant space. I managed a restaurant for a little while and thought I wanted to open up a brick and mortar location. And you know, it's a phenomenal industry, but, you know, obviously there's some challenges with it. What made you decide to want to get into that space? And obviously being entrepreneurs yourselves, I'm sure it was just kind of that itch, but I'm kind of curious as to what your thought process was for wanting to open up a restaurant and bar.
Really, we didn't have a desire to do so at the beginning. I was just looking around for any type of commercial real estate that we could get a pretty good deal on the island of Fort Myers Beach. And one thing led to another, and we tried to make a couple of purchases. It didn't work out. So then we came across the beached whale, and the owners wanted to sell, and we negotiated a price, and I basically got it for almost $1 million under the real estate value. And it came with a turnkey restaurant and liquor license and running bar. It
was called the Beached Whale. That's amazing. That's a great name.
Yep.
I love that. So out of curiosity regarding that, so you started off looking at it as a real estate play. Obviously, you have experience in that space. When you realized that this was also a viable business opportunity, was it just something from day one? You're just like, well, let me just go ahead and try to see if I want to run this business, or were you actively looking to lease out the restaurant space to another user?
I said, let's give it a try and let's see what happens. What can go wrong? Other than a hurricane.
And when you bought that, maybe give us some context for when you bought it compared to Hurricane Ian that visited us.
Well, we acquired it 3.5 months before Hurricane Ian destroyed it, and we did a lot of renovations, fixing it up, getting it ready for season. Season down here starts around October 1st, and on September 28th, Ian decided that he wanted it a little bit more than we did.
Yeah, and for some context for people listening, so Hurricane Ian came on September 28th of 22. It basically leveled our community. And from that point forward, we turned into a huge rebuilding. I said from the beginning, this is a 7 to 15 year rebuild. And quite honestly, Hurricane Ian is why local real estate developers exist at all. Because as we saw the outside developers and corporations coming in and gobbling up the properties, I just felt with everything I know about real estate development, it needs to be our locals who are the ones doing it, because that's where the pride and the sense of ownership and community all come from. So then in hearing stories like you guys, when you said, hey, we're going to rebuild, that you can't really put into words the emotion impact that has on the locals. So maybe if you guys can give a little bit of context around, Mike, I know you had stayed, and Don, you had seen it and came in shortly after the storm was over. Maybe some context around your decision on, hey, are we done, or are we going to come in and double down?
Well, I'll go ahead and answer that one. So Mike was done. He was ready to sell the land and just, we could sell it for more than what we had paid. And I had fallen in love with running the restaurant, doing the marketing. I was really enjoying what I was doing, and I fell in love with our staff. So after Ian, when I saw on the news that they had showed the Estero Boulevard and the Whale both before and after, so I seen that it was gone on the national news. That was kind of the moment I knew the Whale had to come back. It was an icon that made national news after this tragedy. So it just gave me a sense of purpose to bring it back.
That's amazing. Yeah. So kind of to that point. So you made that decision. How is the process of actually getting it back up to where it was before? Because I'm assuming post hurricane, I actually was in Puerto Rico during Hurricane Maria. I was living there at the time. And I know post-hurricane, there were a lot of FEMA personnel that were on site. There was a lot of contractors that ultimately had a lot of work that they had to do in order to get the all these different buildings fixed and repaired. So how was that process, especially being in Fort Myers, where it's not necessarily the most easily accessible place to get to from a contracting standpoint? So was it difficult to try to coordinate with local contractors and other groups to try to get the building set up again? And how did that process work? I'm curious.
Well, what happened is, our building, there was about 3 additions to our building. It was originally built, I believe, in the 60s or early 70s. Mm-hmm. And 3 of the 4 additions were completely missing off the building. And that goes to show for what new construction is today, I guess. And, you look at the old building and it had basically collapsed in on itself. The pilings let loose from underneath from the center and collapsed the whole building. So we had to have it completely leveled. And
I had to do so.
Yeah. And so we did. So we had to grade it down. We ended up we contracted with a gentleman, Fowler Construction, and they had built a place called Wahoo Willie's on the island, and with a thatch roof and everything. And literally, it did not move. Absolutely did not move during the hurricane. So we decided to go with them immediately. It's been almost 3 years now, and we should be able to open in end of September, beginning of October. But it's a long, drawn-out process from, we've never built anything in our lives. I'm a firm believer on buying someone else's misfortune. You buy an existing building, it might cost $100 a foot to build, and you buy it for $50. It might be an older building, but, you can always fix it up. And that's what we were looking at on this. To give you an idea, we've never even built our own house before. We've always bought a spec home or someone else that, didn't take very good care of it. And so we made it to what we wanted. And with that, it just takes a lot of time. And the contractors have been doing a great job. I'd like to see a lot more get done on the island right now.
And maybe some too, we had touched on it previously, but of how insurance works as far as just to help with that. The misconception, I think that, okay, well, you lost your building, so insurance must have covered the full cost to rebuild, right?
I wish that was the real world. That never happens. I don't think in any one situation they got rebuilt 100%. The insurance companies, they've got stop losses they've got to do. They got to ensure that, and they'll drag it out 2, 3, 4 years because they can invest that money and not have to give it to you right away and just prolong it out. And they'll make interest on that money to offset their losses. And then they want to negotiate. For instance, my house, we had 7.5 feet of water in the house. It's a Cat 5 home. Basically all the windows are compromised in it. They don't want to replace any of the windows. We've got a couple that have been smoked, that fogged up and things like that. But as for the commercial real estate, we had it insured for X amount of dollars, and we didn't quite get the maximum amount. And they just basically said, hey, you know what? You can sue us for the rest of it, but we're gonna continue to fight on where was wind and where was flood insurance. Where do they come in, where do they go out, and everything else. And it was going to be a battle that was about $500,000, but it was a battle that wasn't going to be worth fighting. It's just a matter of, we're, built in the 70s. It's obviously not a code compliant building today. And so the insurance company only insures you based on what was pre-existing. So, we had to, we have different elevation certificate heights. So even though we have a kitchen and a bar on the first floor, we have to have them completely flood proof, all made out of concrete. Our building, we put 103 pilings, 45 feet in the ground to hold this building up. And we went ahead, since we're doing all this, we put a third floor on it, which we did not have before.
Wow. Yeah, well, it just goes to show the insurance, how, in theory, how it's supposed to work, but in reality, they're going to do everything they can to not have to pay, and it's an unfortunate situation. And now it's probably even more worse. And I know in Florida, I've heard many horror stories about insurance pricing going through the roof. I'm located here in Louisville, Kentucky. We've had a lot of issues with tornadoes and other natural disasters that have affected other parts of the state that ultimately manifest themselves in higher premium prices. The insurance companies never lose, right? They always find a way to make it so that they come out on top, which is unfortunate, but it's a reality for how we live. So what you mentioned, it's out of curiosity, that 3-year timeline, was that, I'm curious if you could break down why did it take 2.5, almost 3 years to get to the point now where in September, hopefully you guys are up and running for this next season of people coming down to Fort Myers?
Well, one of the reasons too is that, one of the reasons why it's taking so long, we didn't expect a hurricane to hit us. So it's not like we had a set of plans ready to rebuild this entire superstructure that we built. We're looking at, we hired the about a couple months after the hurricane. We hired the contractor, the architect. From there, we sat down with the architect and said, here's our square footage of what we can build. Here's, our land. Let's start putting this together. And it probably took a year and a half just to get the plans together, submitted and approved through the town of Fort Myers Beach, as well as any other community you go to. They want to know, all the engineerings and the wind loads and stuff like that, where you really don't have that in Columbus, Ohio. You're not worrying about wind loads, and because you're not expecting a tornado to go through there, so you don't build buildings tornado proof.
So to that point with the town, to that point with the town process, how many public hearings did you need to go to? And I know you have a really good story on how to overcome some of those challenges, but maybe speaking a little bit to the process of how the town part and any interactions with staff and public hearings went.
Well, with the public hearings, we, lack of a better term, we were the first out of the gate to build a new building. And other than like pre-E and Margaritaville came in, beautiful facility. I highly recommend coming down and visiting. But, lack of a better term, we darn near got castrated. They wanted to know, while we're doing our going through the town, we had to submit all of our plans. We couldn't just do a concept. They wanted all of our plans. We got about 90% of it done, started submitting them, and we had to go in front of the LPA and town council. And they wanted to know about our parking. They wanted to know about our height. Why do we want 6 feet higher? And it was basically to help our third floor tiki hut, the whole top floor is a tiki hut, to be able to hide some of the HVAC units so you don't see them indirectly from the street. Then one of the biggest issues we had was parking. Right now we were 56 parking spaces short. We only have 18. But we're in the downtown district where it's a lot of walking and traffic, where, in my opinion, we don't need it, but they were insisting that we had to go out and try and find additional parking. So we had left that meeting and we had to go to the final meeting. And what I did is I took the radius of 500 feet around our building and said, when we went in the meeting, I said, I took care of the parking spaces. I now have 911 parking spaces. That is how many paid parking spaces they are within 500 feet of our building, and I consider those non-exclusive. So what we had is we pretty much had a new term in the town that a lot of people have started using is non-exclusive parking. All my patrons can park there, so they got to pay $10 or $20, but they're still my patrons.
and that should count as my parking, and I should be able to operate. And that's where getting creative and really thinking. So many times throughout a deal, what you start with is not necessarily what you end with, and at different points that as you're going through a development, it's going to blow up. You're going to be like, what? Seriously? This rebuild that we all know we need is going to blow up over parking spaces? And then you get creative and you find a way. And then now what I love about that, and we can get more into later, but that set the precedent to allow other locals and small businesses to be able to rebuild.
Yeah, we were able to help a lot of other people be able to, commercial properties be able to rebuild. Some of their plans are going in now to be able to get this done, because we took the grunt of everything, and now they realized, okay, let's just get this, let's get the island built. We still have to do it to code and do it properly, but we can do things in a much quicker way, and hopefully get this brick and mortars back up and operational.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, and I think oftentimes with the city, I mean, there is the letter of the law that references probably, hey, you need X, Y, Z amount of parking spaces. But to your point, it should be specific to the area that you're located in, because if you're in a downtown district and you have a bunch of people that are walking around, I mean, to your point, you don't necessarily need to have that many parking spaces. And that's where the human element comes in. I know maybe in your local market, I'm sure the people in the local municipalities, they want to see their community operate in a positive way. And so if you can get an advocate in the department to kind of be there as a sounding board, or even on our case, we have a planning commission where we can advocate towards a committee of different community members that have been appointed to make decisions on planning and design and everything like that. That also helps to kind of grease the wheels to get some things done, which I know is easier said than done oftentimes, but I think it just goes to show how important it is to present the information in a way such that you can try to get people who you need to get on your side, so you can get things moving.
Yeah, it's not that the cities and towns don't necessarily want to help you, but they only know what they know. Mm-hmm. And so if you guys collaborate together, you can help think outside the box and go, okay. And with different people I mentor or consult with, it's, why did the city or county say that? If we figure out their why, maybe we understand that primary reason, and we can find another path to get there. So if we just keep asking why as opposed to, okay, it's done. So yeah, that's awesome. So as you guys were going through this, I know you found the right construction partner because you saw what they did at Wahoo Willie's, and that structure lasted. And it was very evident as you would ride your bike or drive up and down Estero Boulevard. It was, which contractors did a good job pre-Ian and which ones did a bad job. And it's like, definitely not hiring them. But so along with the contractor, what other types of partnerships did this take to go through, whether it's from the design team, the contractor, banks and construction loans, and that part? What did it take to bring this together? Because it's yeah, like you said, a 3-year process, and it's an awesome new build that is.
Well, for the most part, the architect, the contractor, and then they got us onto a design firm for like doing the interior designs and finishes. Doing a phenomenal job. But other than that, that's all we had. We're self-funding this because I don't even want to try and find out what the cost of wind and flood insurance is going to be. So we decided we're just going to pay for this all out of our pocket and get this thing built and make sure it's another great, viable place for locals and tourists to come to.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I'm excited to see once you guys get up and running. I'm sure you guys will have a phenomenal response from the community and ultimately people who come visit the island. And you said the season for what is between late September to probably early March. Is that correct, or is that it's like a 6-month period, or maybe a little bit less?
Yeah.
We start to kind of come back in October.
Yeah, that would make sense. People who want to come down to Fort Myers to kind of avoid the cold weather and everything. I can see that being an attractive thing. And I hear Fort Myers also has phenomenal fishing, and there's a lot of deep sea fishing opportunities as such. So
fishing, awesome. Boating, paddleboarding, all the dolphins.
Yeah. So one question I had was related to, because obviously we've talked about this process taking multiple different years. So how do you guys stay motivated to continue on with this process? Because for a lot of people, and to your point, I'm sure in your previous experiences, you talk about buying property that capitalizes on someone's misfortune or whatever, right? You're finding an opportunity, you're buying at a discounted price. And at that point, you have a property that you can work with and you can lease out, and it's relatively short timeline as far as getting the property performing again versus something like this, which is, you're dealing with obviously the emotion of having it be destroyed in a catastrophic event. And then you have to go through this whole process of bringing it back to life. And again, it's been 2 to 3 years. So how do you guys continue to stay motivated to bring this project back to life? And it hasn't, you haven't decided to kind of close up shop and say, you know what, let's just not have to deal with the headache. So.
Hey, can we chat for a second? Since you're listening to this podcast, you're already thinking like a developer. You see the potential in your community, and you're ready to do more than just watch from the sidelines. That's exactly why we created the Local Developer Vault. It's a free resource full of tools, templates, and trainings to help you take action. And here's the best part. When you sign up, you'll also get access to our local real estate developer community. It's full of people just like you, who are making real things happen in their neighborhoods. So don't just listen to the stories. Become the next one that we spotlight on our show. The link in the show notes to unlock the vault and join our movement.
So I'll answer that one. So about 6 months after Ian came through and our building was gone, we decided to open our bar with a food truck. And we had umbrellas, and it was very, very minimal. And eventually we had a tent. I can't remember how big that was. And we operated under that for a good year until we needed to shut down and then we moved that tent down to our other property and was open there for quite a bit. Unfortunately, Debbie took the tent, but Hurricane Debbie took the tent. But being able to do that has certainly been helpful. Also kept some of our staff employed. But even this past, over every weekend we're open. But on the day one of hurricane season this year, we started something new, which I was trying to figure out a way that we can ward off hurricanes. Like I hear Tampa gets to ward them off, and they all turn and come to us. So we came up with what we call Joe Boo Fest, and we gave him rum and cigars and tokens, and basically in return for him to keep the ward off the hurricanes from our island. So that was a great event. But for me, being able to put my time and my devotion into something like that has been very helpful on the waiting process.
That's awesome. So, and you guys have been able to maintain at least a presence of what you all are trying to accomplish on site. So people don't necessarily forget about the restaurant or the experience, but again, it kind of continually reinforces to the community and also people who visit that this is coming soon. I'm kind of trying to maintain the momentum of what you guys are trying to do.
Very much so, because the longest time our restaurants and bars were food trucks and tents, and just knowing that we had somewhere at all to go and that we weren't alone here and that there were places to gather, that was a huge morale boost for sure. So you had just talked there about location number 2. So you come down, you're 3 months before the hurricane, you acquire a restaurant bar that's running, it gets wiped away, you decide you're going to rebuild, and then it sounds like you double down. I know you actually ended up tripling down. So what was that thought process of, okay, well, we're doing this, we are fully invested here? What led to the 2 and 3?
Well, what happened is, we got wind of another property coming available. The building is still standing. Obviously, the windows were knocked out of it, but we were able to build it under the 50% rule. So we went ahead and we acquired it. Matter of fact, we acquired it a day before it actually hit the market. So we were able to get the inside track on it, and that worked out well.
And that was your bread and butter of getting an existing building that was an adaptive reuse, to where you go, wait, I'm going to buy it at a good rate, I'm going to add value to it, and then there we go. And what's the plan for that one?
That will be Sandy Bottoms. We ended up putting a throat's going. A 4,000 square foot tiki hut out front of the building. The building's 4,000 square feet, and we're going to build a 1,000 square foot tiki hut out front. And we've got most of the plans together already, but we decided to go ahead and mothball it just to ensure that and make sure the whale opens up with, I know we're going to have hitches and glitches, but, we don't want to open up 2 good restaurants at the same time. We want to open up one great restaurant, then wait about 6 months. Then we got all the kinks out, then slide into the other one.
And is the thought with that, you can probably use a lot of the same staff, or at least maybe management to some extent to work both of those?
Yeah, same. We have our same GM, same head chef, and he'll oversee the other chefs at the facilities, and it'll be a good transition, so we don't have to have multiple of the same people. Then we acquired a third place called the Station 31 Fire Department. We bought that. It took about about 6 months ago. We acquired it, and the fire department's building a new building, and the building is standing as well. So we went ahead and acquired it, and that was a sealed bid sale. We weren't the high bidder, but we ended up acquiring it somehow, so it worked out very well.
They probably saw what you were doing with the other buildings, and they decided maybe that you were a good fit as far as an owner is concerned. So that's pretty cool. So I'm curious with that, how close are these buildings together? And I've never been to Fort Myers, so I don't know how relatively close everything is. But I'm just kind of curious in relation to the beach whale. Like, where are the other buildings?
The island is 7 miles long. On the north end is all the happening area, and where the partying is, and the south end is where the nice quiet area is. The beached whales on the north end, then maybe only a quarter mile away is Sandy Bottoms, then maybe an eighth of a mile from that is the fire station, and that's going to be
Okay.
Station 31 Pizza and Subs.
And you have something unique you're doing with the fire station, which if you've never been to Fort Myers Beach, when we are in season, it can take you an hour and a half, 2 hours plus to get off the island to go a mile and a half. It's like LA traffic. So whether people are walking, using the bike lanes, using the trolley, just transportation in general is a nightmare. So what was your plan with the fire station one?
Well, when we open up, to avoid a lot of that, we're going to do, right now it's going to start out as only carry out, and we're going to do e-bike delivery. They allowed electronic e-bikes to be on the sidewalks. So we'll be able to go up and down the sidewalks and deliver pizzas, subs, and salads. And then if we get additional parking in the near future, what we'll be able to do, we're trying to work on some land right now, is the whole lower level where like the fire trucks used to be. We'll make that a whole sit-down restaurant bar. It'll be overlooking what was it? Is it 10 or 13 acre huge complex of condos that hopefully are going to be built someday.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, that's
Amazing.
awesome. I personally am incredibly excited for all three of those. The Sandy Bottoms place that you bought, we had talked about that used to be where I'd go take everyone for breakfast that came in town. And we would I've got a corral of e-bikes downstairs to be like, no guys, we don't drive. We jump on the bikes, and that's how we get around when we're here.
Yeah, it was the Tuckaway Cafe and Royal Scoop building before we acquired it.
That's awesome. Regarding this process, because I'm sure you guys have learned a lot through this, because it's not for the faint of heart. So what type of advice would you give to people, not necessarily to do this particular project, but overall, as far as development is concerned, what type of advice would you give to people who are looking to do community-driven projects such as yourselves?
Well, the only thing I can really say at the end of the day is no risk, no reward. That's what it is at the end of the day. If you want to buy a piece of property, try and buy it right. It's a different scenario if, let's say I have my business I'm running, and I need to get into a larger building, and it makes sense for me to acquire a building, because the one thing they don't make anymore is real estate. So, if you're going to be an owner-occupant, I highly recommend owning your own property. Like I said, I've owned my own property since 1996. And in 2018, I ended up shutting down my export copier business. But anyways, if you take the risks, you hope to get the rewards. But if you're very cautious and you're concerned about a lot of things, we started taking a lot of risks when, my wife and I were dating. We didn't have a whole lot. I mean, I only had like a $1,800 car, and the funny thing is when I went to buy my first building, might have been 24, 25 years old. It was a 54,000 square foot warehouse building on 10 acres. And my dad looked at me and goes, "Mike, are you sure you can afford this?" And I looked at him and I said, "No, but the bank said I could, so who cares?" I go, "Yeah, what am I going to lose? My credit?" I go, "I've got decent credit." I go, "I own an $1,800 car." I go, "It doesn't matter." I go, "They can't take my house. I don't own one." Everyone's got their own scenarios. You got family you got to be concerned with. That's so there's certain times that you take risks, and certain times you don't.
That's
Yeah.
great advice, really. Because I mean, I think that's something that a lot of people, I don't know about overlook, but they put a lot of emphasis on the potential downside of a scenario, which is, I think, smart. I think you need to kind of understand what the downside risk of something is, but oftentimes you don't consider what the opportunity is in there as well, as much as you would the downside. And I think the only way, to your point, that you can advance yourself, especially when you don't have, because everyone starts off somewhere, and if you're starting off with not a lot of resources, you have to find a way to continually push the envelope to try to advance the cause. But I think that, again, it's a balancing act. But to your point, when you're younger and you don't have the responsibility, so that's the time to take as much risk as you can. And if things don't go your way, which, again, things happen in life, you have an opportunity then to go back to the drawing board and kind of move forward. So,
Also,
yeah, I think that's good advice.
one other thing is, if you own your own business, I would highly recommend trying to get your own building. Even if you're like, well, I'm in this little spot, and I'm making really good money. Why would I bother? Well, go ahead and acquire a larger building. Maybe you only use a portion of it. You're still going to probably be paying the same amount of what you'll be doing in rent, maybe a hair more. Then you take 49, because you have to be 51% occupancy on an owner occupant building. Take the other 49 or 50% and lease it out to someone else. And next thing you know, you're not paying anything for the building, and someone else is making the payments for you. And you end up, that's what we've done over time. And we've built a very nice portfolio.
Yeah, it's just like we talk with house hacking, where you buy a duplex, live in one side, have someone rent the other. It's that exact same concept when you step into commercial real estate. And like you said, if you're the business owner, why not business hack and have that building and split up your cost? And there's real estate comes with so many more benefits, which we just got another huge advantage in the bill that was just passed. So, as far as tax advantages and different things that come along with that. So yeah, looking into real estate and the different benefits across the board, which then roll into. So, I mean, we look at the numbers, and I know, Mike, you've done this. You've said how you look at deals. If the numbers work, you do it. If it doesn't work, you don't do it. But then on the flip side, there's that community-driven development aspect where there's some heart and there's some passion that comes into it that goes along with the decision to spend the cost and go. So, and clearly you guys are invested in Fort Myers Beach. But what exactly, when you're saying community-driven development, does that mean to you guys, and the impact that you're having on your neighbors and community members and team members and employees?
Well, I kind of hoped he would answer this one, but I definitely am the one that's more passionate about what we have, what we're working on. I grew up coming to the island, and again, after Ian, my sense of community exploded. And I'm driven by how I can give back to the community. And I spend most of my time where I hadn't worked since the, late 90s. I've been a stay-at-home mom, and now I spend all my time trying to figure out a way to get our island back to what it was before. And I'm not just saying for me. So last night I formed a business alliance with all the restaurants and hotels on the island, where we're working together to get people back out here in the off season, so that it helps out, because so many of these people are barely surviving with all of the, increased costs we've had with hurricanes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. People will say, they'll come visit, and it's, May, June, July, and they're like, where's everyone at? And it goes from being the most busy happening place to going to shoulder season, where you go, we're literally a ghost town. And a lot of tourist communities do run into that. And I know in Tahoe, we had the same thing, and ended up, the community came together, like you said, and said, hey, what can we do to create activities and events that draw people in during the shoulder season? So that way the employees have stable employment. The business owners can, at minimum, at least try and break even and hold that through. So that's incredible with the Alliance. What can you maybe tell us more about that? And then that way, if people want to try and support in any way possible, what they could potentially do?
Yeah, so we're in the really beginning stages, but it is called What's Up FMB. And eventually we will have a website where anybody who wants to visit the island can go to that site, and they can find out where to stay, where to eat, what's going on this day, this week, this hour. You'll be able to find out all of that. And we're all working together. in so many industries, you see people where it's they're all looking out for themselves. But we're so close knit on this island that I don't see how it's going to ever go back the other way. But so we have a Facebook page, and we're working now. We have a behind the scenes page too for just the business owners. But we have the forward one where everybody can come and see what we've got going on. But again, beginning stages. Our first event is Mullet Madness. That's coming up August 1 to 3. And
I keep
and
seeing
then you'll start to
that.
see
That's
more.
going to be great.
Do you have to have a mullet to be in attendance, or is it mullet optional? There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, when I think too, doing things like that is huge, because at the end of the day, a lot of people think that businesses are in competition with one another. But when you talk about building an ecosystem, especially in hospitality and retail, I mean, a rising tide really does lift all boats. So if you have a vibrant retail community that draws in a lot of people, there's a cross-pollination effect that occurs. So it really is a smart move on the part of you all to try to continue to foster that ecosystem, because again, that's how you're going to be able to continue to have people come to the marketplace even outside of those key times of the year. And I know, located here in Louisville, Kentucky, we're obviously big on the Kentucky Derby, so that's like one of our biggest, probably the biggest event in the city. Huge economic impact, but we've tried to diversify into different areas to help continue to have people come to Louisville outside of the peak time, which is the first few weeks of May. So it's a smart move, really. One thing I was curious about too is that go ahead.
No, I was just going to make a quick point that give you an idea of how much of the business owners are into everything. Is right catty corner from the Whale is Margaritaville, and they're a 254 room unit place with, so let's say double occupancy, make it an even 500 people. And I was talking to the owner, and I said, "Hey, Tom," I go, if I get my regular business plus 10% of yours, that's an extra 50 people a day. I'm going to be buried. He looked at me and went, "Mike, you're going to get 20 to 30%, because no one's going to sit here." And even though we have four restaurants on the property, everyone's going to go out and venture off, and they're going to try your place. They may try your place once. They might try Wahoo Willie's, Nervous Nellie's. They're all going to try different places. They're not going to stay at the resort. So what happens is we're going to continually get an influx of people, especially in season.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah, so to that point, now you guys have started a community initiative to try to create kind of a page or the location that people can go to that are interested in going to Fort Myers, and they can do all this research, and hopefully as they come to Fort Myers, they can take advantage of all the events that are taking place. Outside of the 2 buildings that you guys are actively working on, that is like a 2 to 3 year timeline, what does the future hold for you guys in the long run? Are you guys going to continually just operate within the retail space? Are you guys looking to do more hospitality, hotel, or what's your long-term vision for the next, call it 5 to 10 years?
Our long-term vision is getting one restaurant open.
Like that. Hey, that's a great answer, because I feel like sometimes you get caught up with just looking 10 years in the future without really focusing in on what's immediate.
My ultimate goal is to acquire more properties, but right now we just want to get what's going now, and we'll see what the future is going to hold. We've still got all of our real estate up north, so we're very fortunate enough because we still have a very good income stream coming from all the warehouses up in Ohio. We also own 2 manufacturing plants in Nashville, Tennessee. So we've got a good income stream coming in where, we can withstand the longevity of time to get these things built.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's kind of, it's very fascinating to me, because I've talked to people who have owned warehouse property for many, many years, and it's just amazing the run up in value and the demand for warehouse, especially the last decade. It's just unbelievable. I'm sure when you bought back in 1980s, you didn't expect the amount of demand that would have occurred 20 plus years later. So it's pretty amazing.
Well, I'll give you an idea. The most I ever paid for a warehouse was $12 a square foot. That was a 519,000 square foot building. And the lowest I paid was a 221,000 square foot building for $4.80 a foot, and it needed a whole new roof.
It's amazing. No, but it's just fascinating to see how these trends occur over time, because it's just,
and they just continue as building materials cost, and as they go up and the real estate land goes up, your property values. I think over the last, since I think 17, 18 on up, they've at least doubled, if not 2.5 to 3 times.
Yeah. Well, and I think with the advent of on demand for retail in general, I mean, you talk about the distribution needs for people all across the country. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I have friends. I have a friend of mine who works strictly in the cold storage space. That's another space that I've been learning a little bit more about. And it's just unbelievable, the demand for produce and meats and whatever else. And they have these massive facilities that have these very specific type of refrigerator units on site, and the amount of money that people are paying to just occupy the space. It's unbelievable, but it's pretty awesome. So, well, that's awesome. I'm glad that we were able to kind of touch base on your all's, vision for the future, and ultimately the fact that you guys are bringing back really an institution for Fort Myers Beach. And I'm sure a lot of people that are residents of the island and also people who are visiting in the future are going to benefit from that effort of you guys. And I'm excited once I actually get down to Fort Myers Beach. I'm sure I'm going to be stopping by to partake in the
come and visit us.
Yes, please.
I will. Yeah, I'll have a mullet when I get down there too, so I'll be able to.
We're going to hold you to that.
Yeah, I'll just make sure to shave the sides.
I love that. So what are some good ways for people to, one, like find the whale, but also Sandy Bottoms and the other ones and the Business Alliance? What's the best ways for them to get a hold of you? And then we'll make sure we include that in the show notes as well.
Well, anybody can reach me by email at dawnmiller@thewhalefmb.com. But, we're on Facebook that's The Whale FMB, and Sandy Bottoms FMB, Station 31 FMB. And then, of course, the Business Alliance is What's Up FMB. That means Fort Myers Beach, for those who don't know. I thought everybody knew that until I was asked.
I know. They're like, wait, what does this mean? FMB? I'm like, no, Fort Myers Beach. I mean, yeah, exactly. Awesome. We'll make sure we include all those in there. And then this should come out a couple weeks before the soft opening. Are you still looking and tentatively scheduling a 9/28 soft opening?
That's what our schedule is, but it is not our contractors. He's like, it's going to be later. They're blaming me right now for changes.
Yeah, that crunch hour, like the last couple of months and everything that's being jammed in there. Yeah. Sending you all of the good energy and everything you need, and no hurricanes, and keeping everything aside. But yeah, so we'll say looking at a September, October soft opening, ready for season. And yeah, we're just so thrilled and excited to have that one go. I know it's going to create such even more spark and energy in the community. So awesome.
Yes, it will.
Well, Mike, Dawn, really thank you for your all's time. We're really excited to hear the feedback from our audience regarding this episode. I think there's going to be a lot of value that they gain from the discussion. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It makes a huge impact on our ability to reach a broader audience, and obviously we greatly appreciate the support. Along with that, if you guys will listen to us in a podcast format, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. Again, the more people we can reach with our message of inspiring people to take on commercial real estate development in their community, the better. So we obviously greatly appreciate the support. So thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks, Rob.